Hey everybody, welcome to The Dark Match, a part of geeksandgamers.com, Sports Wars YouTube channel. I'm your host, Brandon Andreessen. Before we get going, as always, if you like the content we're providing you, go ahead and click down on the subscribe button so you can get the latest offerings we have. NFL season's coming up, college football's coming up, basketball season, the Major League Baseball playoffs. You're going to want to be a part of all of it, and the only way to be the first one to see the videos is by subscribing to our network. This is going to be a weekly segment we have on the YouTube channel, kind of an appetizer to the main meal, which is our weekly podcast, which drops every Friday on the Geeks and Gamers iTunes and Podbean pages, where we're going to discuss in much greater length a lot of the stuff going on in wrestling right now. But this week, I'm going to discuss one thing, and it's the biggest thing on everybody's minds: Summerslam main event, Sunday night, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. Is this finally the moment, after years and years and years of cock teasing us with it? Is this finally the moment where Roman Reigns is going to win the title, Lesnar's going to fuck off back to UFC, and we are going to get a new number one contender in the mix, a new rivalry, a new feud, and remove the stale top to Monday Night Raw, which has been permeating for what feels like ever? There's two ways to look at this. Brock Lesnar is going back to UFC. He's going to be fighting Daniel Cormier at some point in early 2019. And Vince McMahon doesn't seem like the type of person that would want to have the Universal title on UFC. At the same time, UFC and WWE are becoming more and more alike as we move along. You know, Ronda Rousey is unquestionably one of the biggest stars on Monday Night Raw right now. Moving basically directly from UFC over to wrestling and kind of learning as she goes. Several other former UFC fighters are now training to become pro wrestlers. And Brock Lesnar is, of course, going back, and he's going to headline a UFC event. It would make sense in some ways, almost financially, to have Brock Lesnar holding the title at a UFC event, unless Brock Lesnar loses, and then it looks really, really bad for the title. And I think Vince McMahon is very aware of that. Also crucial to remember, Roman Reigns is, without a doubt, inevitably, invariably, and forever and always Vince McMahon's boy. Roman Reigns he's been at the top of the card forever now. He doesn't always win the biggest matches, but he is controlling a top spot that could be held by other people. It stymies other talent towards the bottom or toward the middle to the upper mid carders who might otherwise have an opportunity to be a number one contender for the title, who are perma stopped from hitting the glass ceiling because Roman Reigns is stuck there. He's not going to go down the card. So the only real way to keep moving forward and getting new talent in there is to have Roman Reigns win the title at SummerSlam and have a new number one contender. It was recently leaked on a line that there is a supercard happening in China on October 1st during a WWE International Tour. I'm not sure if it's going to be on the network or not. They do like to put these kind of things on the network, so it might be. The main event is going to be Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns, which leads us to think that Reigns is going to win the title at SummerSlam. The alternative theory, of course, is that Reigns might win at SummerSlam or Lesnar might win at SummerSlam, and then as soon as the match is over, Braun Strowman cashes in, comes down, he wins the title. The show fades to black with him holding the belt and just Reigns and Lesnar just out on the canvas. That's the smart way to end it. That's the way the Brooklyn fans are going to want it. The Brooklyn fans are inevitably going to crap on this match. And rightfully so. We've gotten this match so many times. We're all kind of sick of it at this point. Hulk Hogan even rotated through different people to keep the storylines fresh. They're not rotating through new people. It has been Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at the top for a long time now. We're all sick of it. Well, I can't say all of us. A lot of people are sick of it. A lot of people want it over. And if that means putting the title on Reigns just so somebody new could be the number one contender, then so be it. There needs to be a rotation at the top. Shout out to Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler, and to an extent Drew McIntyre, for trying to keep the upper middle card moving and putting on main event classic matches, whenever they're on the card. But it doesn't hold the same prestige as having the world title. And the world title isn't being defended, regularly. If you remember, even before Lesnar had the title back, it was Goldberg had the title, and he wasn't defending the title very much. So we're basically, you know, if you're a Monday Night Raw fan, you've been watching you know, a 2-year cycle here where the belt is not really being defended. The belt's not moving. The belt's not changing hands. And there's no real – and because Roman Reigns is at the top of the card, he is Vince's guy. He is going to inevitably be the champion. No one else is getting an opportunity to move up. So all we can really hope for, at least in my mind, is that Roman Reigns wins the title or Braun Strowman cashes in the Money in the Bank and he wins the title. I'm not sure they're going to do that. It seems like too much of a repeat of what they did a couple years ago when it was Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins cashed in the Money in the Bank to win the title. But I'd take a recycled storyline over Brock Lesnar walking out with the belt. Could it happen? It could always happen. These feelings I have, these feelings a lot of you guys have, reaching out, touching you. We had these feelings at WrestleMania. We all thought that Lesnar was done. We all thought that Lesnar was going out the door and that Reigns was going to take the title at WrestleMania. Then when that didn't happen, we all said to ourselves, oh, they just didn't want to do it for that crowd. They're going to do it at the greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia because it'll be a more neutral crowd, and then they can do the title there. Guess what? Didn't happen there either. It sucks to suck to suck to suck. So there are reports coming out that Brock Lesnar is having a meeting at about, you know, Sunday before the pay-per-view around 4 p.m. With Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon, and Triple H about God only knows what. But there was if you guys watched the Andre the Giant 30 for 30 documentary, there's a part where Hulk Hogan said that if Andre didn't want him to win, Andre wouldn't have let him win. That's just the, you know, type of how big he is and how tough he was, and, you know, he could dictate matches by his size. You know, if Brock, do you think Brock Lesnar gives a damn enough to not sandbag a match, to not make Reigns look bad, and to not just knock Reigns the hell out if he chose to? It is Brock Lesnar. He has a certain amount of cachet, and if he knows he's leaving anyways, he might just punch Reigns out for all any of us know and just walk the hell out of the ring. It would pop me, I would say that, but we don't know. It feels inevitable that Reigns is going to win. Future bookings coming up make it look like Reigns is going to win. But this is WWE, and they won't just let us have our shitty climax so we can move on to something else. They're going to keep giving us wrestling blue balls for, you know, all goddamn eternity for all I know. But it's wrestling, and like you guys, I will inevitably be watching. We're all self-masochists. We all just keep doing this. We can keep saying we're not, but let's face it. The next day, we're going to be watching Raw again. The next night, we're going to be watching SmackDown again. And maybe if we find a little bit of time, we'll get a little New Japan and some Impact in there. And hopefully in between all that, you guys listen to our podcast every Friday on our iTunes. Look up Geeks Plus Gamers on iTunes and Podbean. You can check it out there. And if you want to check out more of me, I do a weekly YouTube video right here about Major League Baseball. Check that out. I also will be I also do weekly articles on footballabsurdity.com. You can check out my gambling line picks every week there, along with my stand-up comedy podcast at soundcloud.com/Tim and Brandon Show. And then, of course, you know, the podcast, check us out. And on the Geeks and Gamers main YouTube page every week, they hold a Wrestling Roundtable YouTube video. Definitely worth your time, definitely worth checking out. Until next week, guys, see you on the flip side.